Hello, Colorado Realtors. I'm Scott Peterson. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Legal Bites. It is Friday, the 3rd of May, 2024. And I'm coming to you with this Legal Bites. I'm selfish about this, and I'll admit it. You can probably even hear a little bit. I'm kind of losing my voice right now. And I'm being a little facetious, but some of that has to do with the fact that we have been addressing on the hotline questions, a lot of questions this week, and me personally, individually, I've been out talking to some groups this week and had a lot of questions about this. So I figured I'd just do a Legal Bites and try and address what has been a very hot topic this week since it was released on, I don't know, it must have been Tuesday, I think, morning maybe. But the Zillow Buyer Touring Agreement that was pushed out by Zillow nationally, available to brokers to use, open source, piece of software or piece of software form for people to use throughout the United States of America. And while I appreciate, Zillow's altruistic attempt at industry collaboration and giving back and so forth, in Colorado, and I can only and will only speak for Colorado, not so fast. It doesn't work here. So please avoid using that document in the state of Colorado. It doesn't comport with our commission rules or our license laws. So quick bit of background. This was inspired, I think, in trying to address part of the NAR settlement agreement that is going to be requiring written agreements for brokers or MLS participants prior to touring properties with buyers once the settlement agreement or the practice changes, I should say, go into effect sometime later this summer in all likelihood. And so to address that piece of the agreement, I think Zillow was attempting to roll out kind of a simple one-page document that would create kind of a 7-day buyer touring agreement so that brokers, realtors, real estate licensees throughout the United States of America could be compliant with their new MLS requirements when those went into place. And anyhow, the problem in Colorado with that is this. We have a pretty rigid use of forms or standard form rules in the state of Colorado. And these are memorialized both in Colorado license law and revised statutes, Colorado revised statutes 1210-403, as well as commission rules, specifically in Chapter 7.1 of the Colorado Real Estate Commission rules. And so a licensee in Colorado, anybody, realtor, licensee, MLS participant, anybody with a real estate license in Colorado, you're confined to certain categories of forms that you can use. The most common, obviously, is a Colorado Real Estate Commission approved form. That's what most, particularly residential brokers use, and 99.9% of the transactions out there. Obviously, the Real Estate Commission form is defined as a standard form in Colorado. We also have a category for attorney approved forms. So if your brokerage firm wants to go out and retain an attorney to draft a form for your brokerage firm's repeated use, that works as long as it is drafted by a Colorado licensed attorney and it says right on the form that, this isn't a commission approved form. It was drafted by ABC law firm for XYZ brokerage firm, as an example. Well, this buyer touring agreement, that doesn't qualify in that regard. I don't know whether it was prepared or not by a Colorado licensed attorney. I'm assuming probably not. It certainly isn't stamped as being used by a specific brokerage firm and prepared by a specific law firm. So it doesn't qualify as an attorney prepared form. We also have client forms. So if your client tells you, buyer or seller, they say, hey, I don't want to use this form. We have our own forms. Much more common in maybe a commercial real estate transaction, certainly commercial leasing, and even in some purchase and sale agreements for larger, more institutional kind of type properties, the client might say, I want to use this contract, I want to use that contract. And at their instruction, if they instruct you as a broker to utilize that form at their authorization, then you're entitled to use that. The buyer touring agreement it's not a client form. Zillow is not your client. for the purposes of any transaction you're going to be engaging with. It would be the buyer you would be delivering that form to would be essentially the client. And so it doesn't work in that regard. Other categories, and I'll move pretty quickly through those, are, government or lender forms, which are kind of standardized forms associated often with mortgage closings of loans, things of that nature. This would not qualify as that. The Colorado Bar Association can promulgate a form. So if the Bar Association wanted to prepare and promulgate a buyer touring agreement, and if they stamp it for use by Colorado real estate licensees, then that would be a standard form, and it would be, you'd be able to use that in the same exact manner as any other standard form. But once again, this buyer touring agreement that's been pushed out, in Colorado, it doesn't qualify there either. Another important distinction is you could have a disclosure form that a brokerage firm or individual company could prepare themselves. If it was a disclosure form, and this sort of might begin to act like a disclosure form, but it's not. It's actually an agreement. It's a mutually executed agreement. So this is not just a disclosure that you're making to a buyer. As you know, in Colorado, we have a broker disclosure to buyer where you can default or establish a transaction brokerage relationship with a buyer. But the Zillow touring agreement is an actual contract. That's a mutually executed document that purports to form some agreement. So it is not a disclosure form. It's not a title company form, which is another potential standard form, not commonly used. And then last, or actually not last anymore, but another form would be a letter of intent. And a letter of intent, that's not what this form is either. A letter of intent has to be specifically not binding on its face in order for a broker or licensee in Colorado to utilize it. And then more recently, just a couple of months ago, in fact, the commission added to Rule Chapter 7.1, a builder form is another form that could be a standard form. This would be like a builder contract that you could utilize. Certainly, this touring agreement is not that either. And so the problem, again, despite the, I think, generally altruistic intent to try and push something out to address a nationwide industry solution, is that it doesn't work in Colorado. And so I think hopefully the Real Estate Commission, I know, is certainly aware of and working on potential changes, additions to, modifications of our commission-approved forms that certainly might satisfy in a very appropriate way, should satisfy, I think, in a very appropriate way, the requirement, to the extent that MLSs opt in and adopt that policy modification to the settlement agreement, the requirement that a broker have a written document in place, a written agreement in place prior to working with buyers and touring properties and so on and so forth. But I would strongly encourage you to avoid implementing in the state of Colorado whatsoever that touring agreement that was promulgated earlier this week. I hope that answers some of the questions about it. Hopefully my voice can take a rest and I won't have to, continue to field hotline calls and individual inquiries about this. And hopefully this is a good, informative Legal Bites. Hope everybody's having a great start to your spring, and look forward to seeing many of you as I get to travel around the state, our beautiful state, and give updates and engage with you all. And we will see you on another edition of Legal Bites. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.